Podcast. I'm your host, Ben Colbert, and we're thrilled to have you with us again for episode 13. This is Fear, part 4, and yeah, we're here and we're ready to go. On a side note, it is summer break for me in the teaching world. We just finished up our last day of school, and I thought before I went home today that I would record another episode and get this thing rolling and start summer off on a great foot. So I'm super excited for this opportunity as summer is upon me now. I'm hoping to put some more time into recording episodes and cranking out more content. This is the first summer ever, well, not ever, but probably within the past 14 to 15 years where I'm not going to be on a football field. I'm not going to be, walking out to coach a football team. So I'm going to take all that time and I'm going to try to put it into this and build it and provide you with some valuable information. And this is the new version of me, the new coach in me. I'm sort of like making an internal transition, a season of life, if you will, that I'm super excited about. I'm a little nervous. I don't know how my summer's going to go without football because it's been so long that I don't know what to expect. So I'm excited but nervous at the same time. But thanks for being with me today. And I wanted to start off by talking about training the mind. And normally, I might save this information for like my football team. Stand up in front of the room and fire guys up and try to get them motivated for the upcoming year by sharing some of this information with them. But hopefully I can share it with the world and have just as much of an impact potentially. But we've been talking on fear, and I've talked about how I'm going to try to give you some tools on how to conquer or overcome or deal with fear as it comes in. Me personally, I try to deal with fear every day. The internal voice that keeps me from doing what I ultimately want to do or who I want to become. And sometimes I fail at it, and then sometimes I'm able to combat it and do really well and look back on the day and know that I've overcome some things, and hopefully there's more of those days than the days that I get beat up, But I feel like in the end that builds confidence, which is what I'm going to cover today. So what does that look like for you? What does that look like for us? Like training the mind. How do I callous it? How do I make it stronger? And in many ways, the mind, there's so much stuff out there today. If you look hard enough, you can find people that are way smarter than me talk about things that can influence the mind in a positive way. Psychologists that study this day in and day out. But some of the things that I feel like that really helped me that I would like to share with everybody else is, I think I start with what are we feeding our minds? Like, what are we putting into it? What are we consuming day in and day out? Whether that is the people that we hang out with, where we come from, our upbringing, moral code, our current friend situation or social settings, books that we read, things that we watch on television, things that we consume via social media, online, things like that. What are we feeding ourselves? Just much like what's our diet look like? How much nutrients are we taking in? And the more like great, good, wholesome nutrients we consume, the better we're going to operate day to day. Our mind is the same way. If we are feeding ourselves properly, if we're consuming good information, then the better off that we're going to be. So what are we reading? Are we gathering beneficial stuff? And I'm just going through my notes here, but surrounding yourself with positive people of influence. And that could be people that are up close, people that you work with, people that you go to school with, or maybe it's even people that are far away. Maybe it's a social media setting where you don't know the people you necessarily are following, but what are they posting online, and what information are you consuming by them? So you're being influenced by their ideas. And are their ideas good? Are they rooted in goodness? Another one is, practicing gratitude, being appreciative in moments. And I struggle with this at times where I think like the day is hard, and how can I move my mind in a better way if I'm sort of struggling, if I'm feeling sorry for myself, practicing gratitude, being appreciative for the little things. Like find the smallest of things in the day that you can be appreciative of, and rest in that area for 5 to 10 minutes. Meditate on it. Try to let it soak in and know that good things are occurring. Another example might be, how to train the mind is to avoid convenience. Taking the long road. And there is a Bible verse that I love. It's Matthew chapter 7 verses 13 through 14, and it says something along these lines. It says, "Many choose the wide road to destruction, and that few choose the narrow road that leads to life." What road or gate are we choosing? And we're talking about convenience here. Like the wide road is super convenient. And then a lot of people tend to take that road, but there isn't as much life found down the wide road as there is the narrow road. And most times when we avoid the convenience and we take the long, winding, narrow road, we're going to find more happiness. We're going to be able to overcome more things. And visually, if you think about it, like I'm a big Sunday drive guy. I love taking my kids, put them in their car seats, like nap time, like watching them grow up. Things that I'm starting to see like fade away, like they don't take as many naps now, but like if they wouldn't lay down, I'd put them in their car seats and I would drive country roads. Living in Kentucky, some of the most beautiful drives ever, where it's just like this meditative state that you get into where they fall asleep and you've got like some relaxed chill music going on, and you're just winding through the roads of Kentucky, back roads, looking at all the farmland and the trees and all the wildlife, and you're reminded in those moments just like this is where life is found, compared to like the drive isn't nearly as appealing when you just get on the interstate and you go straight and it's wide and you just meander down the road. I always take the back road where the scenery is, and to me that's where the spirit is. That's where God's found. And in many ways, if you choose to take the narrow road day in and day out, we're going to find more life. We're going to be more encouraged, and our mind is going to be in a better place. So here's a question that sometimes that we can ask ourselves, and I think it's really good. Like, what version of yourself are you feeding? What version? There's like version A and then version B. Who do I want to become? Who do I want to move closer to? And one of my favorite quotes, I think this is Dallas Willard, who I mentioned last episode, but your inward life should outperform your outward life. Meaning, like, what are you feeding yourself? What version of you are you leaning into? Training it like a muscle. It's like going to the weight room, and pumping iron, going for the run. But in this instance, what people am I surrounding myself with? What conversations am I having? Am I developing my inner self? And being on this continual quest for betterment and training it and thinking about it every single day that you get up. What version of me do I want to move closer to today? And the last part of it is just protecting it, standing firm, knowing that I have to be on guard, and like this isn't like I can't just wake up every single day and be this way. Like I have to fight for whatever it is that I want to be. So I think something else that I believe is helpful is to understand that everyone and everything, day in and day out, has the potential to be a teacher to me or us. Every person I come across has the potential to be my teacher. Like, there's this opportunity to learn in every situation. And I think I'm really mindful of this because I am a teacher. Like that's my profession. But I teach my kids, my students, but I also have the understanding, and I've leaned into this more here the past couple of years, is that my kids can teach me just as much as that I'm teaching them, through conversations, the way that they interact, relationship building, whatever that looks like. Like I learn a tremendous amount from them, and I respect that, and I have to be aware of it and conscious of it, and then in those moments where I find myself getting tore up, like if a kid is out of line or they've done something and they've made a bad decision or whatever, like remember that they're my teacher too, so continue to show respect to them as much as like that I possibly can, and always have that in the back of my mind. But yeah, everybody that you come across has the potential to be your teacher, and I think that's, if you think of it that way, you can always be equipping yourself to be better and be in a better position to train your mind. Brendon Burchard, who I've mentioned several times over the past couple episodes, but has a fantastic quote as it pertains to this stuff, and learning to accept the fact that people or anything can be our teacher in this world. He says, "A great maturity opens in the human mind when we accept that we can control our impulses by conditioning our thoughts, and that we alone are responsible for our emotions and reactions in life. We can condition our thoughts and beliefs and our actions. We can train it, and it takes time, and I think you have to remember to be patient with yourself, to move in the direction, as long as you're moving towards what you want and to be good. You have this ability to control your impulses, and I think this is really apparent when we're talking about addiction. I used to dip. I used to use smokeless tobacco, Kodiak, wintergreen. Loved it. I think about it daily. Like I'm an addict when it comes to it, and I've been clean from that for 4 years. Something that I struggle with today, even. But I wouldn't have been able to get through 4 years and be away from that for 4 years if I didn't, early on in the process of quitting, understand that I could start to control my mind. And the days that I controlled it, and those days that I won, and I chose not to go back to it, that helped to condition me and made me stronger and more confident, knowing that tomorrow is just going to be the same. I'm going to be able to continue to fight for whatever it is that I want. I'm moving towards this version of me, and that I can train my mind with various things that will help support my quest. And the quest was to quit. I think a lot of us struggle with addiction. We just don't name it openly as much. Look at sugar. Sugar, there's so many things in this world that we all consume and love, but sugar is highly addictive, and then you can get into alcohol or drugs or all that type of stuff, and that's not what this episode's meant to do, is go down that road. maybe another time. But the point being here is we have an opportunity to train our mind, consume content that help us to be better versions of us, which ultimately help us overcome moments of fear. So people who are able to overcome addiction, you know, I feel like they all have this in common, and you know, and I'm fascinated by that, and I'd love to have conversations with people that have been able to overcome it. So other people who embrace fear, overcome fear, you know, examples of those types of people that, like, day in and day out, it may not be every day, but a lot of days they wake up and they know that moments of fear may creep in. Like, and what I mean by this are people like the firefighter. Like, every day that the firefighter wakes up, they know that they may, like, have to walk into a burning building, and that they have to be able to train their mind and understand, like, that could be a possibility today, and what it takes from a mental fortitude standpoint to do it. You know, it's hard. You know, the EMS worker, you know, the firefighter, the EMS. I can't imagine, you know, rolling up on a car accident or walking into someone like a stranger's home, not even knowing them, but when you walk in the door, you know that there stands the chance that you may be put in a position to save their life. Military personnel, you know, going to a foreign land and fighting for your country, you know, and this is like the police force as well. Like, if you're a police officer and you stop someone on a common traffic violation and walking up to the side of their car, their door, I can't imagine to be in that situation. And you're trained for it, but I would say, like, every time that you do it, there probably is a component of fear there, because you don't know what you're walking up on. You know, and the other versions of this, the guy asking for a raise, or the lady, you know, knowing what they're worth, that they have an area of expertise and they want to be compensated for it, is, you know, going and knocking on their boss's door and saying, hey, I know who I am, I know what I stand for, I know the skills that I provide, and I want to be compensated for it, you know, and I believe I deserve a raise. You know, that takes courage, and you have to be able to, you know, overcome the internal fear that creeps up in those moments. You know, the clutch player, you know, and this is the coach part of me, but big moments, fourth quarter shots, you know, making a big third down catch in a big moment of the game, hitting a pitch in the bottom of the ninth inning. You know, fear creeps in, doubt creeps in, but how do you overcome those moments and not let those internal conversations, you know, keep you at bay? You know, idea people that are passionate about certain topics, they're educated on them, and they want to share their ideas, maybe in a debated setting, you know, and they have the courage to speak up and share what they believe in. Public speakers, getting up in front of people, large groups, teachers fall into this category as well. People who admit their wrongs, you know, and I think I've talked to my students about this quite a bit, and, you know, I even struggle with it from time to time, but, like, I think we all do as humans, is just, like, admitting when we're wrong, saying, hey, you know, I own this, I made a mistake, please forgive me, and try to learn from it, and you move on. But just recognizing the fact, like, I'm not right, I'm not perfect, and I'm very apologetic, you know, but I'm admitting it and I'm ready to move on. And then having the ability to say no, like, whether that's peer pressure or you know, it could be various things, you know, just if you don't want to do something, having the courage just to say, no, I'm not putting my time towards that right now. thank you for thinking of me, but I want to move in this direction. And just having, it's almost a superpower in itself, is just being able to say no when people are trying to pull you in a specific direction. So standing firm for what you believe in or what you want to do or become. Hold on. And when we talk about these things, not compromising moral code comes into play. Don't compromise and do things that you ultimately don't want to do or don't want to be. And I think this is a large reason people are rooted in spirituality, Christianity, Buddhism, whatever that looks like for you. You have a moral code. You have a foundation that you can stand on, and in moments that are difficult, you can resort back to those beliefs and know that you stand for particular things. My next note talks about thinking of it in terms of swinging your sword and not keeping your sword inside of its sheath. Pulling it out and going to work for the good, for the betterment of you and the betterment of the world, and not sitting back and being passive. I believe it's in the Bible, the book of Ephesians talks about the armor of God, and God is speaking through, I believe it was Paul, and he was talking about the equipment that the Roman soldier would wear, and that he had a sword, and he had a helmet, and various pieces of equipment, but understanding that we're in enemy-occupied territory. That's what this world is. And another guy, C.S. Lewis, who wrote the Chronicles of Narnia. I don't know if you've seen those movies. Actually, I've not, but I've just read several things about or on C.S. Lewis. But he says the enemy-occupied territory. That is what this world is. So don't be afraid to take out your sword day in and day out. Wake up with courage and know that some days are going to be really hard and some days are going to be a little easier. It's like a wave. That's the ocean. You have the waves that are crashing on the shore, and then they regress and they go back out and they come again. You have electricity. It comes in waves. Life comes in waves, and when the big waves come, take out your weaponry, the things that you've been consuming, the good stuff that protects you, and don't be passive, but go to work with it, and have courage and confidence, and know that today's going to be good, tomorrow's going to be good. Hopefully, there's going to be a bad day, but I'm going to keep coming, and I'm going to keep fighting, and I'm going to keep moving in the direction that I ultimately want to be in. Passivity, in my note here says passivity is destructive to the inner self. And if there's have you ever had a moment where you wish you would have acted, you wish you would have jumped in, but you sat back and you almost have a regret that you didn't do something in whatever situation that is. I've had that in my life countless times. It was I wish I would have done this, I wish I would have said that in this moment, but I didn't. I stayed quiet. Having regrets of inactivity, where I had the opportunity to intervene or not to intervene, and if I'm training my mind, if I'm whatever that looks like, where I'm building confidence and I'm able to act, when those moments occur, I'll be able to not be passive, but I'll be able to jump in the fight if need to. And the last couple things here is when we're talking about passivity, inaction, and not intervening, in those moments we sit back and we ask ourselves, do I have what it takes? John Eldridge is really big on this. He was one of the first guys. I was reading some of his stuff, and he posed this question. It says, and it was in his book Wild at Heart. He was. It's mainly about a book for men, but I think this is the humans in general. In any moment, do I have what it takes? Whether that's, if you're an athlete, do I have what it takes to play, to make the play, to win? If you're a student, do I have what it takes to do well in a particular class? This is very common. I have this conversation with a lot of students. It's like, why don't give it a shot? Why don't you try harder? And some of the answers, they don't come out directly, but you can sort of get at, if I try and I fail, then that's almost look like a bad thing. So people don't try at all. But if we can get to the point where like failure is part of it, like fear is part of it, we have to learn to embrace it. Like the many individuals that I was speaking about earlier, they just know that like that's a part of what they do, it's a part of who they are, and they have to accept it. And they're going to go anyway. They're going to intervene. They're going to be people of action. Like if you're the player, be the person of action. If you're the student, just be a person of action and go and try and do it. And you might fail, big deal. Keep going. Parents, being like the protector of the home, whether that's the father and the mother, being protector of the marriage itself, guarding it and giving life to it, and doing things together to help foster a good marriage, and then guarding the hearts of your children by helping to teach them what this looks like, as far as learning to train your mind to move towards the narrow road and away from the wide road. New parents, where you're delivering like a new baby into the world, it takes courage, and know that like, hey, we need to be rooted in something so we can share this information with our children, and that we're going to set them up for success. And then you look back on, do I have what it takes? What are the trials, that you've overcome that can assure you that you can confidently go about your day? What have you went through that has hardened you, that builds your confidence, that like, I can take this, I'm fine, I'm a fighter, and I got through that, and I know I'm going to get through this. Like, things come in waves, whether that's the mountains, you have mountains, peaks, valleys, but it's going to be okay type thing. Like, I know that I have what it takes because I've done it. I've seen this, and I've lived. And like the narrow road isn't easy, but most of the time, that's where more life is found. And I'll end with this. Is another Dallas Willard quote, and I think it's important to remember. He says, "How much energy, thought, motive, and consideration is fueling your becoming today?" And I think that is packed full of just awesomeness. How much energy are you giving towards the betterment of you today? How much thought? Like, do you wake up and think about, like, what am I going to do today that pushes me in the direction I want to go? Whatever that looks like. Am I going to read more? Am I going to have more loving conversations with my spouse? Am I going to encourage my kids more and be present and see with my eyes and live? What motives do we have internally? What consideration are you giving to or fueling your becoming? Like, who are you becoming today and every day? And I think that quote is so helpful, and that's why I love Dallas Willard. He just has some fascinating thoughts that I think are super helpful. So if you ever get an opportunity to check some of his work out, it's really, really good. So that, my friends, is episode 13, and it wraps up our Fear series. And thank you so much for being here. And if you haven't, head over to the Universal Life podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcast, and leave a review if you don't mind. You can also go to YouTube, and I have a Universal Life YouTube channel. Leave a comment, subscribe, hit the bell. That definitely helps the show. And thank you so much. And I look forward to putting out some additional Universal Life content with the summer is here. So thanks again, and you'll have a great day. Take care.